I don't remember who wrote this. It may have been Virgil Thompson or it may have been Gertrude Stein, but they used to talk about Paris in the 20s, and they would say that what made Paris really special in the 20s was not so much what the city gave you as what it did not take away. And I thank Vera for not taking anything away from me. I do remember meeting her when I was 4, possibly 5. Then I do remember seeing her play on television, and I may have gone to a recital of hers when I was very, very young, but I don't remember. But she certainly was a presence, so there was kind of a legend that was stirring up. I had a teacher from about 5 until 8 who, I think it was okay. It was very conventional piano lessons, just learning the basis of technique, but I don't think I felt particularly inspired. I think that I had a very creative nature because my nature was to make up things at the piano and not necessarily play what was written. I think that I couldn't articulate it, but I think this was my nature. I remember very much, maybe, I don't remember my first lesson, but I do remember the atmosphere of Vera's house. There were not individual lessons, but it seemed that there was activity going on in different rooms. In one room, she might be coaching a pianist or giving a lesson, but in another room, maybe one of her older, more experienced students would be trying to give a lesson. Then in another room, there would be a group of people listening to recordings. And then in a I remember there was a harpsichord in a living room, and I remember that she would let me sit at the harpsichord and improvise to my heart's content. I think Vera certainly had a sense of my creative nature, and she encouraged that quite a lot. She sent me home with a note from my parents, which was a list of recordings that they should buy for me. I don't remember everything on that list, but I do remember the very first recording, which was an LP of Wanda Landowska playing Scarlatti sonatas. That was my first exposure to Scarlatti sonatas, and maybe there was a connection because I liked her harpsichord. I have no idea. What I remember quite a lot was not so much what pieces of music I studied with her, because I didn't like to practice, and I wasn't great at reading music at the piano. But she, every week, or almost every week, she would either have me sit in a group listening to recordings, or she would send me in a room where there was a small record player, and she would give me things. They were incredibly eclectic, and I didn't know what was going to happen from week to week. And and if I liked the recording, I would ask to borrow it, and sometimes I'd forget to return it. But this is how I first heard the Beethoven cello sonatas with Rostropovich and Sviatoslav Richter. She turned me on to Rossini's piano music, believe it or not, which is still very underrated repertoire. And I fell in love with it. But she also turned me on to Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane. This is where I first heard these names. I remember she had a disc of the Beers family, which was a folk music, world music kind of ensemble. I vaguely remember, but it was very interesting and exciting. This was the first time I heard Hamza El-Din, who was an oud player. So every week, I didn't know what to expect. And then I remember she was going to collaborate in a 2-piano concert with the jazz pianist Earl Hines. So another trip, she sent me into a room to listen to Earl Hines playing solo piano. She got very excited about Janis Joplin and the Cheap Thrills album. She used to make little reviews and little notes on paper, and she Scotch taped them onto the covers. And in fact, she took me, I don't know if we went with other people, but we went to see her at the Fillmore East. I also remember the first time I heard Sgt. Pepper was at Vera's house. It may have been the week it came out. and thinking, this is modern rock and roll. It was a revelation hearing the sitar, hearing, again, the harpsichord.
Right.
I remember bringing a Bob Dylan album that I had just bought. It was a new Dylan album. And Vera didn't say this is good or this is bad, but we were listening to something. We played it, and there were a bunch of us sitting around in front of the record player. And then she started talking about how one of the songs was in a odd time signature, 7/8, 5/8, mixed meters. I remember, actually, it was seeing the sheet music for Sgt. Pepper and seeing Within You, Without You
Right.
notated, and seeing 5/4 or 7/4, whatever it was. This was quite exciting. And so I think that a lot of my time with her was really that she was setting up a launching pad for my life, and she was kind of calibrating my musical DNA. Mainly, I think that she was asking questions all the time. She wasn't telling me what to do. She was really giving me a lot that would inform me as an adult. I have tremendous love and affection, and to say like how you feel about Vera is like saying how do you feel about air, how do you feel about water. She's a life force, and she's influenced so many people in many different ways that what she has given you and what she's given me is only a small part of a much bigger picture. And I suspect that there's a really big global community that if we all get together and put together the pieces of the puzzle, we still won't get a sense of her influence. Vera, thank you for making me me.
Jed had he was very shy, but he had a lot of energy in his movement, body movement. And there was always the feeling I got that I had to understand and feel what the person was that was in front of me. And whether his highest form of expression would be in music, you know. And Jed definitely read out that way. He didn't want to sit and really do anything that was in order, but he was interested in everything. And I made a real point of exposing him to so many styles before I ever really got into making things more specific as to what each thing meant and how to execute it. To know what things are about in every kind of style you could imagine, you know. And a real love of all of them. I remember taking him to concerts with me. I remember him sitting in an audience, and as part of my audiences, I could spot him out, you know, in 10th row, playing at concerts. And he felt good. He felt like he was in the music with me, you know.